Hi, welcome back to Worm Watts, where we harness the God-given power of compost worms to transform organic waste into amazing living fertilizer. Now, today we are going back to our bin that we named the Cantaloupe Cemetery, and this was one of the bins that we were designing to be a fungal-dominant bin. And before I dive into it, this was a bin that we loaded with wood chips, and then we added in an entire frozen cantaloupe that we buried underneath. And before I dig in though, I'd like to point out these little, look like fly bodies perhaps, that I noticed here on the top. And I feel like that can be a bit of a telltale sign of some of the things that have gone on since we've last been in this bin. It's been over a month since we've been in this bin, a month and maybe about 4 or 5 days. And last time we were in here, there was a large number of flies in here. They were really taking advantage of the cantaloupe being in there, and we've got some garbage to pull out of there. And as we look in here, you can really see that this time that we've given the bin has really resulted in a lot of really neat fungal growth. So I believe that what we're seeing there, it's like maybe some mycelium perhaps. So this is really, really neat to see, because that tells us that the bin conditions are really nice, that they're really promoting what we hoped would dominate in this bin, which is fungi. And so I'm really excited to see. I'm excited to see how dark the wood chips are. And I'm just going to use my hand and kind of, oh wow, look at that. Immediately found a worm. Let me zoom out so that I can, it's tucking away back there. That is super exciting to see, because I wasn't sure how the population would do, and already we've been able to find a worm that seems to be doing just fine. So this is really, really promising. I'm really excited about this bin. Again, this was designed to be a fungal dominant bin, so we loaded it up. This thing was basically all wood chips. We put in that cantaloupe to kind of feed a little bit of nitrogen, because even though fungi do prefer, or they do dominate much better in areas where there's less nitrogen, that doesn't mean that they don't need nitrogen. So that was one of the things that I looked into before I started this bin, was making sure that I promoted the best environment for fungal growth. And obviously using something that's very woody, like wood chips, is a really neat way to do that. It allows the kind of food type that the fungi really do well with, as opposed to bacteria, which tend to thrive in higher nitrogen situations. But yeah, so far this looks really good. I'm trying not to dig over here and disturb those mycelium. I'd like them to kind of establish themselves, but you can see there's kind of like I would say, I can't quite describe that. Looks like a brownish, yellowish color to the mycelium. I'm gonna just get a good little focused view in there. And even there, you can see the flies. There are some flies in the bin, but it hasn't been the overwhelming welcome that we would have expected when we saw it last time. So I imagine most of those flies might have made their way out, which is kind of what we would hope for. But yeah, this is definitely still a very woody bin, and I'm really hoping that the worms do great in here. So far, like I mentioned, we've only seen one, but that's it's great to see, considering how woody this bin is and how full of organic materials it is. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some some more of our eggshell, the ground up eggshells in here, just to provide a little bit more grit for the worms. And I'm also planning to do a little bit of watering. We'll just water a little bit, make sure that the environment stays really nice and moist, which is going to help the fungi. And then before I do either one of those, I'm going to dig into one of the corners just to make sure that the moisture, just to make sure that I get a good gauge on the moisture. So far it looks really good, but I just want to dig down into the corners. That's a really often an area where you can kind of get a feel for where moisture would collect. So you just kind of want to make sure that the moisture is well distributed through the bin, and that'll help us to do that. So, all right, I've chosen this corner to be the one that I'll dig into. So far it's nice and moist. Oh wow, look at that. There goes a nice healthy worm in there. So yeah, we're really doing great. I like how the bin is doing. I like the health of the bin. The worms seem to be comfortable. We've got them deep, and we've got them kind of a little bit closer to the surface, so that's really promising. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and spray down the top, provide our eggshell grit, and we'll close this up. We waited a month, and I think honestly that's kind of a fine time frame for a bin like this, to just especially to give the fungi the time that they need. So I like that kind of time frame. That's probably when we'll check on it again next. But yeah, so far this is really wonderful. Down toward the bottom it was a little bit more moist, but again, not in a way that was concerning at all. And with fall coming and lower temperatures coming in, watering the bin a little bit more is not going to be a problem. So keep it nice and moist to really help the fungi. And I'm just so thrilled about seeing this development right here. It's really exciting, and I'm really hopeful that the worms will be able to dig into this. So again, with a fungal dominant bin, trying to do minimal amount of turning and things like that, just in order to keep the mycelium as intact as possible for the worms to enjoy. So we've got it nice and watered. I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle the eggshell grit over the top. We'll do a few spoons of this. I'm gonna sprinkle it even over the fungi. And we'll get one more. All right, I think that's enough. So it's nice and almost like snow is covering the land, and that should be good for our worms. So really, really cool to see. Again, hoping for a fungal dominant bin. I feel like we're already seeing that right over there. Really curious to see what the eggshell distribution will look like next time we're in here, and kind of how that migrates, whether the worms kind of carry it around or whether it just kind of sits. But this is the kind of bin that's going to be a little bit slower acting. until the worms really increase their population. And I'm really excited to see that. But the moisture level seems to be solid, and I hope that that helps to promote their activity and their reproduction. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you join us next time when we dive in again to this beautiful fungal dominant bin that we've named Cantaloupe Cemetery.